So welcome to Entrepreneur TV. I am your co-host, Velma Gallant, and I'm excited to have you here today. We have a really good topic today, and this one is really important for all of you entrepreneurs out there. We are talking today about working from home. Work from home like a pro. So, okay, my screen is just being a nuisance here today. Don't know if any of you have ever had that happen to you. Okay. Alexander Arshavski is an entrepreneur and a full-stack web development expert. His experience includes a decade of freelance and entrepreneurship experience and almost 20 years of web development experience in every possible industry. Alexander has also played a pivotal role as a founding partner of Caresys, which they successfully built and later sold. And I'm told he's starting up a new start. It is involved in a new startup here. So absolutely continuing with the trend. Alexander is also a devoted husband and father of 3 boys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So this is going to be a really good topic. So we are chit-chatting about your new book. So the new book is called Work from Home Like a Pro, Hacks for Balancing Work, Life, and Profits. So share a little bit about yourself. How did you get into entrepreneurship, web development, and is it that adventure that had you write the book?
Yeah, so I did the whole path, like in terms of web development. I started, in my first company, which was General Electric. I started as a quality assurance engineer, and then I moved on to several other positions, like developer positions. And then I moved on to be a team lead in multiple companies. And then I was a VP R&D in multiple companies. And then I started my freelance stuff that I'm doing up until now. So I do it for almost a decade now. And it was, kind of a big transition for me, because it's totally different state of mind. And of course, I didn't knew it at the beginning. So I made every possible mistake that I could make. So that's kind of eventually brought me to an idea to share my tips and my experience and whole way that I did. So
okay.
Maybe it could help others. Yeah.
Okay, so you started out in regular jobs, kind of a situation, moved your way up the ladder, and then eventually from that decided to transition into being your own boss and freelancing with all that you learned over those years. So that's what I heard about that. Now you mentioned that you had done made all the mistakes when you transitioned into working for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel was the hardest thing for you to learn when you were transitioned out of working for other people into working for yourself? What do you think was the hardest thing for you to learn about that?
I can't I can't take out one thing, because it was many small things.
Okay.
But I guess it's kind of a state of mind, because it's totally opposite from working from the office, like 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. And the idea that you should treat yourself as a company, that you should have your own value, and you should have your own target market, and you should have your own lead generation funnels and your networking. And it's totally different world from coming to the office in the morning, when you have your schedule and you have your things to do, and and you totally disconnect in the evening. And Yeah, it's totally the opposite.
Okay. So what I think I heard here was that one of the main differences between working for somebody else and working for yourself is that you need to be aware of the entirety of the company and not just your one role.
Yeah. It's you have to understand that it's not 100% doing the things you're doing. Whether it's developing or anything else. It's all the maintaining of the company. So if it takes a few months to find a new job, you need to be aware that you're going to work with probably with 5-6 different clients, and you need to take into account that part of your time is going to be spent on finding new customers and developing your networking and doing some stuff which is not directly related to the things you do on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's a lot like, I'm going to use a completely different area of work, but say, for example, you love baking, so you decide to open your own bakery. Well, it's not just baking that you're doing. It's
Exactly.
Setting up the storefront, making sure that you've got a way to be able to receive the payments, getting the advertising out there, building your client base, that kind of thing. So that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Now you mentioned there about, having 5 or 6 projects. So, and with any of us that are in here, I mean, a lot of the people who are inside of this group are consultants of some kind, coaches or consultants. They're going to have multiple customers, projects, and that kind of thing. And one of the things that you share in your book is about prioritizing. How would one go about prioritizing the various aspects of their work or their customers?
So generally there is a lot of different tools for that. I usually prefer doing some kind of to-do list. It can be digital, or it can be on my whiteboard, or sticky notes, or whatever. But I like to have a place where I have all my things sorted out by priority, and I go over this list in the beginning of the day. And little by little, I understood that everything should be in this list, not only work-related stuff, but also family related stuff. And when your times are very dense, and you have to switch between clients and family life, and because you work from home, so there are many distractions too, etc. So you need to be sure about the order of the things you're doing, and you don't want to waste just another 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just wondering what to do next.
I like that.
And that's, that's kind of a habit which, keeps you, more focused and organized. Yeah.
So do you have any, say we put all of our different projects, including the personal projects, into one location, like you've suggested. How do we go about, do you have any tips on deciding what the priorities are, how we decide what our priorities are, so that we are able to move from one task to the next effectively, and making sure that we're putting our time on the more important things?
So when I started organizing, my work with my clients, I started, as simple as possible, just to see which of my clients needs what, and whatever needs to be done faster. But over the time, I learned that it's a little bit more complicated, and I can fine tune my prioritization, because there is also a severity, and there is also a complexity of the tasks. And maybe I can have clients that pay me more or pay me less, and it can be another factor for my prioritization. And also, many other factors, like, for example, the time of the day, because sometimes I can be productive, at the evenings, for example, and I can be less productive in the morning. So I choose the tasks accordingly. So I put them in order in a way that, maybe the most complicated ones, where I need to invest more thinking, etc., I put on my more productive hours, and leave the others to the rest of the day. Yeah, that's kind of
Okay.
it. It can be other factors, but that's the most common ones for me, at least.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense. So what I heard is the complexity of the project that you're working on is going to have an impact on where it gets prioritized, and that, I'm hearing that kind of being tied into the time of day that you're most productive. So if you've got a complex project that you're working on, you're more likely to put it in that higher productive, higher brain capacity time. And then there's also layering in who are the higher paying clients into that as well.
Yeah.
And I can see that it's not going to be the same all the time throughout the entirety of it. But it's having kind of a strategy when we look at all of those projects. So did I hear you correct?
Yeah, and even it can be also inside the same project. I can break it down into smaller pieces, and maybe there are some time where this project can be more important, and tomorrow another project can be more important. It's just like where you stand in the milestones of the specific projects, etc. And even it can be more strategical client too. So it also depends on the way you organize the stuff. Yeah.
Right. So I really liked what you shared about being aware of the time of day where we are most productive. I don't know that people necessarily think of it that way. I know I do now, but that's not always the way I thought about things. It was just, start at the top of the list and go down. Whereas I am aware that there are times of the day that I'm stronger. And it is better to put some of those more complicated items in at that time, or even, having strategy sessions and that kind of thing during specific times as well.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about not being an employee and being able to schedule our own time, having the freedom to do things in the order that we do them, doing it at the times that we do them. I think some people, especially when they're first moving into working for themselves, that can kind of lead into a little bit of a willy-nilly life. Like you do things whenever you feel like doing them. And I think that can lead to a little bit of difficulty. Did you find that you had to be a little bit tougher on yourself when you don't have a boss looking over you and telling you what hours you're supposed to work?
Yeah, of course. I'm usually invest, like, I don't know, 20% of my time, intentionally. I spend it on my networking and, meeting people for coffee. It can be physical one, or it can be over Zoom. But these meetings, which sometimes physical, so they kind of take place in my calendar. So then I organize the rest of my day and the rest of my clients around it. But yeah, it's one of the problems is that when you work as an employee, and so you can have some project you're working on, and there are sometimes you have more work and sometimes you have less work. But as a freelancer, it's more problematic because you can have like some work with 3 clients or 4 clients, and the day after you have only 1 client left once again, and the day after that you have 6 clients. It's super dynamic, and yeah, it's very problematic to adjust. And I also try, if I like do onboarding for multiple clients, I also try to do that gradually as far as I can. So I try to avoid starting with 2 or 3 clients simultaneously on the same day or even on the same week. But yeah, it's kind of habits. It's over the time you're learning to organize it in a way that works good for you, and it's just a matter of experience. And
Okay. So what about, so it sounded like you have a few boundaries for yourself, right? Like allocating a certain amount of time for networking, being strategic in how you onboard new customers, trying to organize your work with clients in a way that keeps it kind of balanced for your time. Do you find that it's important to have boundaries as well for externally, like with clients or inquiries or anything like that?
Yeah, first of all, there is also family life, of course, because I work from home, so it can be some time in the evening that I know that I need to bath the kids, and I need to read them something before the bedtime. And yeah, it's kind of in my schedule, like together with the customers, and I put boundaries to everything I can put boundaries on. So basically, even during the day when I switch between customers, I can have 2 hours allocated for a specific customer, and it doesn't matter if I finish my current task or I'm not, or I'm struggling with something, or I'm fixing the bug. I have like fixed time that I drop the pen and I switch to another customer. Just because it's a matter of habit. It's not a good thing to keep trying to solve some complicated problem for a long time, because in that time you could solve many small easy tasks for other customers, and that's kind of yeah, that's kind of habit I took for
I like that, and I like the term that you picked, drop the pen. So it's basically putting down that task and then moving on to the next one. So what do you do if, say, for example, you're working with a client, you're working on a project for that 2-hour span, and do you not touch your emails so that you don't get distracted with somebody, another client coming in and saying, I have an emergency? Do you turn your phone off? How do you make sure that time stays allocated to that particular project rather than getting pulled in another direction?
So regarding emails, I try to check the emails, around twice a day. I look at the email in the morning and one more time in the evening. But I chat with all my clients over Slack.
Okay.
And I communicate, with every one of them, and all my clients are aware that they are not my only customer, so I have other things to do. So yeah, when there is an emergency or something critical which is happening in production environment or whatever, so I get the notification on any channel, WhatsApp or Slack or whatever. And in that case, I can tell my customer that, I have some urgent stuff and I know that I'm in the middle of something with you, but I will continue working on it tomorrow or in another hour or another 2 hours. But I try to be, very open with all my clients regarding, my hours spent and where I am with the current tasks and where it's going, and
So have you ever had a circumstance where a client has decided that they are an emergency, but when you look at the situation, it's not an emergency? Have you had to deal with situations like that?
Of course, yeah. But in that case, I still need to invest some time. Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's half an hour, but I still need to explain it to the customer and convince them that it's an emergency. But of course, it's happened frequently.
Okay. How do you know that? How do you determine that a project is something you should be taking on, or a project is something you should not be taking on? Because one of the things that you shared with me is it's okay to say no. And I know that's something that I practice with a lot in a lot of different areas of my life, is learning how to say no. How do you do that? How do you decide what's a yes and what's a no inside of your work?
So it was one of the mistakes I initially did when I started doing my freelance. But over the time, I learned that I have my own value, which is, namely, it's my experience and all the possible industries that I've been on, and I know how to do things correctly. And from that, comes all my target market, which is basically breaking into two. I'm working with startups in the beginning of the way, or a bigger company after round C with specific problems. So first of all, on my first communication with a potential client, I try to understand if it's my target market or not. And I have many cases where I talk with some guy from some company, and he says, we have a lot of things to do, and we have a budget, and we want you to jump into the code, etc. And I say, wait a minute. I mean, tell me about your company, how many people you are, how big you are, in which phase you are in terms of development, in terms of your team, etc. And sometimes I say, look, it's not going to work for us. Okay, I know that you need help, but it's not going to work for us. Maybe it will work for a few weeks, but eventually it won't work because of 1, 2, 3, 4 these reasons. And I think 99% of the cases, the guy says, you're probably right, and I would like to stay in touch with you. And after that, they keep being in touch, and they contact me for another project in another company and another phases, etc. So it's always welcome to stop things if you see that it's not going in a good direction and it's not a good fit. So it's many cases.
So just because you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should do it.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome, because I know that even in other industries, there will be. So my process works with, I choose to work with women. My process would work with men. My process would work with younger people. My process would work with, and all of this. And there's so many times you hear people say, well, what I do, I could help everyone. But the reality is should you be helping everyone? And so what I heard was it's really important to be clear on who your target market is and what your target work is, so that you're staying in that direction, even if you could do other things, could work with other people or other projects.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I in the beginning I was starting, getting anything where I can help people, in any work that can be done. But eventually, I figured out that there are some companies and some projects that just didn't work, and I tried to think why it didn't work, and then I figured out that it wasn't my target market. I mean, the client couldn't understand, my pricing, or the client didn't understand that he should have, another person on his side to manage my work, or even, to understand what I'm doing, or to have someone, doing the product management, because, my client doesn't know about this function in the company, and there are many other reasons. But eventually, yeah, if it's not my target market, yeah, I'm gonna say no. And
Okay.
yeah.
So what I heard there was that there was a bit of a learning curve with that when you first went out into doing your freelancing, it was actually taking on all of those different things that helped you determine who your target market was. Is that true?
Yeah, correct.
Excellent. Okay. So we're just about at the end of our time. And if you had like one piece of advice what's one piece of advice that you would give anybody who's considering going out and working on their own, or even somebody who's been at it for a little while, something that would make a difference for them?
Basically, it usually starts with trying to fire in every possible direction and trying to get clients. And my suggestion would be just to think about it and to understand that it's totally different mindset, and to try to make things structured from the beginning, like, to divide your time between your customers and the time you invest in the business, and you need to understand that you need to develop your business, and try to make it as structured and ordered as possible. That's
Right. Yeah. Systems and structures are super valuable early on in the stage. It's not just something we bring in after we've hurt ourselves.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I want to remind everyone that that Alexander has a really good book out there that you should go check out. It's called Work from Home Like a Pro: Hacks for Balancing Work, Life, and Profits. So I've got the title of the book on the screen here, and you can hit Amazon and check it out from there. And you can also find Alexander on the socials out there as well. I know that he's on LinkedIn because I've connected with him there, Facebook. I did not put his Facebook connection on here. I think what we'll do, Alexander, if you could go back into the group when we're done and make a couple of comments there and share some of the important things so that people know how to connect with you, that would be fantastic.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And for those of you who are out there in YouTube land, come on over to Heartpreneurs with Terry Levine on Facebook. We'd love to have you. You can connect with more heart-based business owners like myself, like Alexander, and like Terry. We'd love to see you. Thanks, everyone, and have a brilliant day.